Let's talk about hidden assets. So you've got three really good options, very logical options to solve the problem at hand on the table. And now you ask yourself, let's have a look at hidden assets and let's see two things. One, which of the options we currently have ticks more of the hidden assets? And the second most useful is, can we come up with a fourth option by looking at the hidden asset, by the assets that the three options currently on the table don't work with? Okay, let's take that slowly. First, let me introduce the hidden assets. So I'm going to show you a big slide here. If you want to pause, have a read, and we'll resume in a sec. Now, can you see what we have here is a long list of assets. It's a long list of things that many companies would be desperate for, and as with most assets, they don't deplete over just one calendar cycle. Okay? If you have reach, if you have interaction, if you have insight, if you have authorities, these are great qualities, these are great assets for a company to have over a very long period of time. The reason they're called hidden is typically they are not quantified in financial accounts, which means accountants and other financially oriented business people might not necessarily recognize these as assets, whereas strategists and operationally minded business people would. Okay, so when you have this list of assets, and you can see here we've got a few illustrations of, reach. McDonald's has reach, and that's a great asset to have, the ability to touch such a large number of customers. Interactions, Walmart not only has reach, but also interactions, having frequent and meaningful contact with customers, not uncommonly once a week for many of them, etc., etc. So once you have this list of assets and you've really understood, what you do next is you create three columns on the right with your three options. So option A, option B, option C. What you do next, very classic consulting work or strategy work, you put ticks next to each of the assets according to whether A touches it. So option A, does it give us reach? Yeah. Option A, sorry, does it give us interaction? Not so much. Insight, maybe, etc., etc. This is very specific to the options and the problem you're looking at. Then you do option B, then you do option C. And when you're finished, you notice two things. The first one is, if you tot up the scores at the bottom, you'll have a very classic analytical route one approach, which says, oh, option B is better. It touches more of it gives us more of the assets that we're after. That's interesting. Let's push that aside for the moment. What we're using this framework for here is to create an option D. And the way you do that is, instead of looking vertically, you look horizontally. And you collect the four hidden assets in this example, where none of the current option touches these assets. And when you finish, you gather these four, you put them together in hand, and you say, okay, you apply reverse logic. Can we come up with an option D in our industry that will give us benefits on these four hidden assets? Now, pause for a minute. I find it really hard to give you a live example here. It works better in live training. But if you think back about your industries, think at the three options you have on the table, and then create an option for that way. And one of the things you'll find is, the reason this hidden assets approach is very powerful is the four assets, if they haven't been touched by three very logical options, it means they're probably not front of mind in your business. They're probably things that people don't necessarily think of as a key area of strength of the business. And so when you concoct an option 4 on the back of that, two things happen. It's either it's going to crash and burn. It's a silly option. There's a reason why nobody cares about these bits of the business. They're not that important. And can you see that at the other end of it's not a bell curve, it's a camel curve. At the other end of the camel curve, you'll find, oh my God, nobody has thought about it before, but it's a fantastic idea. And a very nice example in that respect is, if you think low-cost airlines, low-cost airlines succeeded on the back of lots of different initiatives, but one of them is the ability to recognize that if you get the cabin crew to tidy the plane in the air, okay, then you can guarantee that the plane, at least on the inside, is ready to turn around very quickly at an airport. and therefore you can increase the utilization and then lower prices, etc., etc. So effectively, cabin crew tidying up, or cabin crew doing work on top of serving meal and drinks, was a hidden asset. And when you do a hidden asset, the first time you mention it in your industry, people might look at you a bit funny. They might go, well, that's not really, what our industry is about. And if you ask airlines people 20 years ago, it's all about planes and pilots and routes. The idea that cabin crew and what they do could be strategic would be a bit bizarre. So, in summary, hidden asset, a list of 16 great strengths of a business that you try to hit as much as possible with the options you have on the table, but more importantly, you read horizontally by a bit like it's a bit like Scrabble. You take 4 letters that have been a bit left over from the other play, and out of these 4 letters, you try to concoct a 4th option by asking yourself, can I think of an option D that hits all 4 of these hidden assets? And when you do, these options are either very silly or brilliant. There's no real middle ground here. That's one of the downside or one of the upsides, depending on how you look at it.